Yeah, almost had it, yeah. Close. So we'll have how it started. You want to gavel? Okay. Oh, that was nice.
All right, welcome to downtown Grand Forks. This is the time and place for the Growth Fund Committee. We will start with item 1, roll call.
Here.
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 Thank you. We'll move on to item number 2, minutes from meeting of April 24th, 2023. Moved by Osowski for approval, second by Crary. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Item number 3 is going to be the Career Impact Academy land transfer and project update. Ms. Richards.
Thank you. This is both an action item and an update. The action that's requested is the physical transfer of the property. Staff report kind of walks you through the process of, the state grant and the required $10 million local match, and the local match from the JDA was the property that was the former Grand Forks Inn and Suites. The purchase was to help meet the match, and then the transfer was contingent on the project actually proceeding, which is looking very good. And so now it's my pleasure to ask Gary Ripley to come up and give you an update on that project.
Mr. Ripley.
All right. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Eric Ripley, Director of CTE and Technology for Grand Forks Public School District. And any opportunity to get a chance to talk about the Career Impact Academy is a good one. So I appreciate your time today and consideration for this agenda item. I had submitted a presentation, so pulling that up. We'll breeze through the slides here a little bit. If we can go to first one. I think that's slide 8. Perfect. So we're really excited to announce, as Meredith indicated, the project after a few delays, mostly funding from the federal level. But we're excited to be where we're at right now with this and moving forward in a positive direction. We just completed the design development phase of this project, which allows us to put together the bid packages to proceed with getting those out on the street. We'll be in front of the Grand Forks Public School Board on June 12th to give updates on the design development phase. We're seeing a current rendering of the exterior of the facility. And then I'm planning to come back to the school board in mid-July with a guaranteed maximum price. And with the hope of building materials and subcontractors availability, we'll be able to move some dirt and construction starting this fall. So we're excited about that. Next slide, please. Lots of reasons about how we got here. I think for the Growth Fund, probably the most important one is the next slide. So if you just scroll down to the next one, please. Why do we need the Career Impact Academy? When we put together the competitive grant application of the state, we surveyed our industries within the region. We talked about how lack of workforce was really a limiting factor in terms of their ability to grow and expand within the region. And we certainly feel like the Career Impact Academy is a great strategy towards helping to fill that talent pipeline and keep our talent local. Next slide. Just conceptually, the kind of overview site of where this is located at. Again, this is the former Grand Forks Inn and Suites location, right off of Gateway Drive. Very symbolic. We think about the gateway to future careers, right? We like that, but there's also visibility. We talk about partnering with rural communities, not just Grand Forks Public Schools, but surrounding communities as well. We think this is a great corridor for accessibility and visibility. Certainly has great proximity to local industries as well that have been partnering with us throughout the way. Next slide. When we looked at programming, there's really 3 key factors that we wanted to consider when we looked at the programming for this facility: student interest, because they are elective courses, and again, beyond just high school students, we're also looking at what are the needs and interests of our adult education and upskilling. And so working with entities like TrainND in our post-secondary schools, I think also provides an opportunity for us. But at the secondary level, specifically looking at, what are students interested in wanting to partake in. I mentioned the post-secondary training education. We obviously have Amy here from UND, Lake Region State College, Northland Community Technical College. They've all been great partners in trying to make sure that their post-secondary opportunities align well with what we're offering at the high school level, so that there's either dual credit articulation opportunities for students to be able to move from the secondary to the post-secondary level. But again, back to that previous slide, the concept was regional workforce need. There is a need within this community. We know that. We want to make sure that we highlight industries that are in need within the Grand Forks region. Next slide. Just from a design view, this is a two-story building. It's a combination of two-story spaces like automotives and building trades, so high bays, a combination with single-story labs on both the first and the second floor. And so the first floor is very linear design, right? That's will be nice for both visibility supervision, but also energy costs and utilities. And we take a look, we have programs including automotives, robotics, engineering, aviation, UAS, culinary, building trades, and I think that's all in precision technologies, which is kind of a fancy term for precision agriculture. And then the second floor. Next slide, please. This would just show that I should mention before we get to the second floor, there are some alternates being designed. Again, as we talk about early bid packages and putting things out, we're certainly hopeful that the bids come in lower than expected. We'll see. Kyle could probably give me some info on that, maybe. We'll see. The idea would be is if the bids come in at a reasonable rate, we have a building in our budget. We definitely do have a design and plans to be able to add on a welding component and a multi-purpose space, which we did include in our original grant application. And so if bids come in where we want them to be, we're happy to put those two in. We're designing those two spaces out right now. Second floor. This would be again the combination of the two story base spaces with those X's, but then second story programs would include our medical careers. Certainly probably our flagship program, talking of the need for this facility from a secondary perspective. We have students that are highly interested in these careers. We have existing programs right now, but we have capacity issues. Right, so we're turning kids away from a career pathway that we know is in demand. Certainly has post-secondary education training options at the 2- and 4-year level. There's obviously a need within our industry. So the ability to expand on the space like medical careers is really exciting for us. And then also information technology on the second floor. Next slide. This just shows the alternates on the second floor. Next slide. Funding comes up a lot in terms of where we're at. We certainly were just, I mean, the commitment of our local industries, including the Growth Fund, the JDA, the city, with the donation of the land, and be able to count that towards the local support. In addition to the 65+ industry partners that stepped forward with pledged financial commitment to this, was really, I think, what set our application apart when we're looking at the state. And we have, I'll get to the next slide a little bit to kind of visualize what that type of support looks like. The North Dakota Legislative Assembly, they stepped in where the U.S. Department of Treasury has been delayed in getting us the approved funds. Those funds still have not been released by the federal level. So the state assembly stepped in and said that the state would loan the money to the State Bank of North Dakota in lieu of these payments, and essentially pay themselves back when the federal money arrives, which sounds promising that it could come, but we've heard that for the last about 8-9 months. So we'll see. And then the additional sources we're looking at include this property, actually based on its location, qualifies for new market tax credits. We're looking at that as an opportunity. And there's some additional language through the Legislative Assembly work that talks about carryover funds from other entities that could help spill over into this project should they become available. Okay, next slide. I referenced what our community supporters look like. That visualizes it better than anything, right? It's really this slide that will ensure that the project is successful. We have that many entities, individuals, partners that are behind this project and be behind it since day one, honestly. And so we're excited to be able to again be at a point now where we're talking about taking this concept into reality, and you know, this land donation is certainly a big step in the right direction. So next slide. Schedule next steps is another rendering of, you know, I could put these as my screensavers all day long, look at them, they're pretty exciting. But I'm privileged to have Sean Sensipal from JLG, he's our principal architect for this project. And he can talk a little bit about next steps, timeline, in case the committee members are interested. So Sean.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to touch a little bit on schedule, as Eric mentioned. He talked a little bit about in his presentation. Right now, actually, as of last week, we've put out a 100% design development drawing set that is going to be bid out to contractors. PCL Community is our construction manager at risk. They're going to take about the month of June to get competitive bids for the project. After that process through June into July, we're going to come out with a GMP, or guaranteed maximum price. The school district will at that time determine whether or not we can move forward. We're hopeful that if everything goes as planned, that late summer, early fall, we'll be able to start construction. So between getting the GMP and that construction period, we'll start procuring materials that need additional lead times, ensuring that we have subcontractors in place. The overall construction schedule is about 16 to 18 months. So ultimately, if you kind of do the math, that puts us to about spring, late spring, early summer of 2025. But the ultimate goal is to get the school district in ready for classes in fall of 2025. If we get in early, that'll give time for the district to kind of feel its way throughout the building. We're also maybe do some summer camps, things of that nature, really good programming. That's a big picture overall schedule. Any questions I can answer? Thank you.
Mr. Ferry.
I don't know, if Sean, appreciate you coming. Mr. Ripley, appreciate both of you guys coming. Just kind of contingency plans, I guess you can, speak to those, and I've heard them before, but just be nice to know. Bid comes back, it's at expectations, great. Everybody's happy, we're moving forward. If it doesn't, is the route to potentially, seek additional funding, or is it, I know you already have a couple areas where you could pare back, or I just want to make sure that unless it's like drastic, of course, I'm not, you can't say it's 100% moving forward, but there's enough contingency plans in place that even if you have the option to either raise more or to scale back to make sure something comes to fruition.
Sure. Yeah, I think sometimes the term is failure is not an option, right? This facility is going to happen. We did want to value engineer the building, which is why there's some spaces that are listed right now as alternates. Certainly there's an interest and a desire to have those spaces included in, but we also need to be budget mindful. We're very interested in where the budget bids come back in. In our proposed budget, we are carrying an inflationary cost. The legislature also provided $3 million of additional funds on top of the match to help address it inflationary. And again, there's some language written in a couple of different bills talking about carryover funds from other projects that could spill out or into this project as of early as of October 1, which isn't really that far away. So I think it would be a combination of a lot of factors. It could also include local additional fundraising. Our fundraising commitment was over a span of about 60 days. We raised gross $11.5 million. And that was a really condensed time frame based off the application. There were some entities at that time that we approached and simply said, come back to us, right? We can't make a decision in that short of a time frame, come back to us. And so certainly that's something that we need to look at, but we're very interested in seeing where that gap is at and how we can best address it.
And one additional question in regards to programming, and maybe that's a Dr. Brenner question, but how frequently does the district then look at the programming and the needs, and is it adaptable where every year you could pivot? I don't think that a year seems a little excessive, but maybe 5 years, or can you talk a little bit about that if you need to meet needs that are different in 5 years?
I think it's a great question. Certainly we want to design the spaces that are in there. I know it kind of breezed through the floor plans, but designing those for flexible spaces, the ability to be able to reconfigure space if curriculum changes. Little things like power coming from the ceiling versus, being hardwired into certain spots, right? Things like plumbing, high bay spaces, again, thinking about those types of opportunities. The other thing within career technical education that's very common is the ability to have industry advisory committees as part of every one of our programs. And so the ability to have those outside external voices and expertise providing their input on where's our curriculum at, where's our programs, what's coming up, and how should we then adjust as need be. Yep.
Thank you. We're super excited. It's fun to be off of the ground and starts getting some dirt gets moved this fall and sweet.
share your excitement. Thank you.
Ms. Whitney?
I think I share the excitement too.
Yes.
Follow up, I think, to Mr. Curry's question, and thinking about staffing the building and looking at those projections from the school district's perspective, what's the additional staffing here to be able to,
Sure.
put forward a facility?
It's great. It's a really good question. So, because obviously teacher shortages in all areas, especially if we talk about specialized fields. Some of these programs are just expansions of existing programs that we currently have. So I'll take engineering, for example. We already offer engineering programs at both Red River and Central High School. And so that program would be relocated into this facility. Within medical careers, it's an expansion. We have some existing medical careers staff. We talk about capacity issues, both from space, but also from staffing. So there would be an additional staff individual. And then there's other programs like welding, which we don't currently offer at all. So that would just be a brand new staff member. So when you do the math, we're looking at this facility having roughly 16 full-time staff members. Of those existing, we feel like we have 11 to 12 of those already on staff. But the new programs, again, welding, culinary, we don't have current staff. Those would be brand new staff members.
Thank you.
Perfect. Great presentation, Mr. Ripley.
Appreciate the time. Thank you again.
We have a motion to approve the staff recommendation by Osowski,
So moved.
second by Whitney. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. We will move on to item number 4, child care flex place request. Are you taking over, Ms. Broccoli? Okay. Staff report says something different, so I could be.
Well, typically these applications originate with the EDC and we let whichever able staff member they.
You're lucky number 1 then.
Hello, thank you, Chair Weigel and members of the Growth Fund. My name is Becca Kruger. I'm the Director of Workforce Development for the Grand Forks Region EDC, and happy to be here, whichever staff member, to present this report to you tonight. Obviously, childcare is a huge workforce issue. That's why I'm presenting the report tonight to you guys. What we are going to present is a application from D. Decimus Homes and Stephen Holmes from CAF Property Groups. They are creating a new child care facility, Elway Child Care, which will be located at 624 North Washington Street in the former Listen Center. The total project that we are presenting tonight is $965,000 is the total project. When they got into this building and they took it over, they found that they had to do a lot of repair work to the HVAC system, some remediation work, and so they needed to find some additional financing to cover that remodeling on the inside in order to open the facility. So tonight they're requesting overall loan of $129,253,000 is the project. The FlexPay subsidy would be $14,962 coming from the city of Grand Forks. And then that would leverage a Bank of North Dakota grant of $27,786. And so that will be secured through a secondary mortgage on the property, as well as a personal guarantee from the owner, D. Decimus Homes, and a corporate guarantee through Elway Child Care and Learning Center. And the loan to value is 65% for this project. So that falls well within the means of what is reasonable to request. And I'm gonna turn it over to Stephen Holmes, one of the owners who's here, who's gonna talk about the child care facility, what they've done to date, and then I'll be back. Stephen?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm going to read. Elway is a dream that became a reality. Our community needed more spaces for children to learn and play. We've added 73 spaces to help fill this need. Our family holds our children's education to a high standard, and we plan to do the same for all the children that attend Elway for the many years to come. We purchased the building in December on December 20th, actually, and our permits were authorized on February 6th. So within 3.5 months, Elway was completely renovated to fit the needs of the children. When we say work was done from sun up to sundown, we really mean that. Our contractors worked countless hours to get us to where we are. And if any of you have driven down Washington there, you've seen the process and where we are today. We are expected to open by the end of next week. We have passed our licensing inspection. We're waiting for our license number for the state. We're currently at 70% capacity. And now that we have an open Dayton site, we have staff that also includes our director, our assistant director, plus full-time teachers for each room. So we're fully staffed already. We also have a smaller building that also was purchased in the agreement. And that building is going to be a crisis home for underage individuals with disabilities. All Embracing Home Care will provide the support that's necessary for those individuals as well. And we're just very happy to be able to bring something to the community that the community can be a part of. It's not just a building for us. The building itself has history. The building itself has been supported by the community for years. And we just wanted to continue that and just bring something that everybody can really be a part of. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I first got to know Stephen and Dee when we helped them apply for the Regional Workforce Impact Program, a state level grant. So they have gotten a grant to move forward with the purchase of the building. And with your motion to recommend this tonight, it would allow for the retrofit of that facility. Gate City is the holder of the note of the $129,253. We do have them on hand as well. And they have signed letters of commitment for this project, and the state of North Dakota has also, the Bank of North Dakota has also signed a letter of commitment. So I'd stand for any questions or a motion.
Perfect. I think it's something that's greatly needed in our community. I think the state legislature saw that in the last session that they just completed, that they're investing in childcare, and it's great to have another facility opening up here in Grand Forks. There's no comments. Motion by Osowski.
I'll second.
Second by Wolf. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to item number 5, leases with Air Autonomy, Thread, Hub Edge, and the Hive. Mr. Richards.
Air Autonomy, or Thread as they're now known, was one of our first tech tenants in this building. They have been occupying the southeast corner. You can attach to, you have a ton of attachments to your staff report. I apologize for the volume there. Their current lease, which was executed in January 2021, is on a month-to-month basis. And with the completion of the EDA funded renovation, we're ready to both update that existing lease and execute a lease for that new space that they have been occupying for a few months since that renovation was completed. Probably the easiest way to get an overview of what we're looking at is that third page of your staff report that kind of shows what they're paying now for the east wing, which is $19.24 a month. That is about 1,300 square feet at $16 a square foot plus a $200 a month internet fee. What we're proposing for that space is very similar. We're removing the $200 a month internet fee because the membership fee that I'll talk about a little later kind of covers that. And then just tweaking the square footage. There is a closet that they have had pretty much exclusive use of, so we're adding that to the lease. We're leaving it on a month-to-month basis, but mostly it's just kind of small cleanup items for this portion of the lease. The new, or north wing, as we're referring to it in that summary, is the space that was recently renovated by EDA. So EDA is pretty adamant that they reviewed the lease terms. We did just last month, get approval from EDA for both the lease template and the membership agreement template. So that's why we're finally coming forward. We've been in discussion with Thread staff for months to kind of get to the terms that are in front of you. In any case, for the new space, it's not quite 2,100 square feet. The template lease that we have had approved by EDA calls for everything in this building that EDA renovated will be at market rate, which we're calling $20 a square foot. Then, given that this is a tech accelerator and we're here to assist our tenants or acceleratees, we have the ability to attach an addendum that would apply a discount. And in this case, we've agreed with Thread or Air Autonomy staff on a 50% discount, which is in recognition of both their kind of early scale-up status and their willingness to act as a mentor for other tenants or members. Josh Reedy and his staff have learned a lot. While they're still growing, they have a lot of advice and insight to offer those who want to follow in their footsteps in the tech sector. So that's the basis for that 50% discount. In this case, again, because it's an EDA funded space and EDA's expectation is that this is not a long-term space, but something that you will help these clients and then they will move on. We're looking at a 24-month term, maximum of 36 months, so it would be renewable for up to 12 months. And Thread has requested an opt-out option. So after a year with 90 days notice, they could get out of the lease without any penalty. The other element that is new is this membership fee. And again, that's part of the loaded attachment to your staff report. The membership fee is kind of a mechanism to give us some revenue for a space that's very rich in amenities, but has pretty limited leasable space. We're providing super fast internet, lots of meeting room options. We'll have, the kitchen will soon have a coffee maker so that we can actually fuel the work that goes on here. But in any case, what we're looking at is a kind of $150 a head fee. So if you are a full-time on-site employee of a lease holder, those staff members would pay $150 a month. The membership is to the individual. We expect that the member company will be paying it, but the way that membership agreement is set up, it will be signed by both the employer and the individual employee, because it outlines kind of a code of conduct, as well as what we provide from this facility to the tenant or member, and then what we expect in return. So bottom line there is their rent will go from currently $19.24 a month. Assuming that they have 10 full-time on-site staff, their new rent would go up to $51.71 a month. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. We, excuse me, don't have anybody from Thread here, but they are well aware of these terms and are satisfied with it.
Thank you, Ms. Richards. Mr. Crary.
Thanks, Ms. Richards. I'm not going to argue the merits of the lease and all that. Obviously, the Thread, EDA, city staff, that's great. The one question I did have is more on the back end city staff. Has there been any performance performed on from a cash flow perspective? So from investments from the city, I understand that we just want to be good stewards of the city asset. I mean, ultimate purpose is to grow these companies and support them. But I just want to make sure, has there been any due diligence done on the pro forma side for renting?
Well, that's the balancing act that we're always struggling with, is we want it to cash flow as well as it can, but we also are here to help the companies, not just be a commercial space and compete with the private sector. We've got pro formas that I wouldn't really feel comfortable. We're really thinking that we're starting operations here in the month of June. We don't have any real history as a functioning accelerator to go on. We're hopeful that the red ink isn't too heavy and dense, but we'll certainly, as we get some more data put together, we'll be bringing that through the advisory board and to you folks.
And so I just want to make sure at least that thought process is being had. I'm not expecting you guys to have something bulletproof right now. Just want to make sure that angle was also played, because I think the sole purpose is to help support these companies, but if we also don't want to lose sight of the fiscal responsibility we also have. So
Right, and that's the balancing act that we're always aware of, and as we get a little more out of construction and into the operational side, we'll be going to the advisory board to get some criteria. You know, how do we select who gets to use this facility? There was a fear and unwarranted that there would be no interest. Now we're looking at how do we tell people no, because there is so much interest.
Awesome.
Mr. Wolf.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Richards. So similar to what Mr. Crary is thinking, and don't expect to have it all figured out, but we're talking about Thread today. There's lease space and there's membership. There's other space available for lease, but not everyone will be able to lease. So, but by applying a discount here of 50% for the reasons you mentioned, how much space is available for lease, or how many spaces are there? And would we envision, if we're going to give a 50% discount here, would we expect that in the future as well on that?
Well, at present, we don't have any real leasable space. Since the Herald has left, we have a great opportunity, but the space needs some work. Depending on the type of tenant, our thinking is we will have tenants like Thread that are in need of support to grow and then get out of the building. We're also hoping to attract mentor tenants, you know, Grand Sky, who would they would be providing a service. We would expect them to fully support the facility by paying full rent and full membership. So we're really only looking at discounting members or tenants who would be in that stage of growing their business. If you're an established business, you might gain some great contracts or some great employees by being here, but it's not the city's job to grow that existing business. So we would expect them to pay full freight, more or less. Now, this hasn't gone through the advisory board, and that's what these criteria that we're talking about will spell out, but that's kind of staff's approach to this in the short term.
So thank you, Ms. Richards. So to follow up, I mean, where Thread is, there'll be a lease, or there is a lease, there will be a lease. Where the Herald used to be, that will be developed, and there will be leasable space.
Correct.
Yet to be determined exactly how many leases within that facility, but that'll be leasable. And then the rest will be more the rest of the revenue will be membership,
Yes,
correct? For the rest of the facility.
right.
So that's where, when you're building pro formas, as you go through that, we'll see what that looks like as we go forward.
Right. We're expecting kind of three sources of revenue: the membership piece, the lease element, and then a kind of a donor or corporate sponsor. You know, we've got naming rights. So that's kind of our three sources of revenue would be not really charitable, but more charitable than business driven, and then the lease and the membership piece.
So thank you. And I'll stop, I guess, is just more one comment that would be is, I like the fact that the leases are shorter in nature. That's the purpose of this facility, is to help and hopefully for them to grow and to move on into other spaces within this region. So thank you for answering my questions.
Mr. Conley.
Just a quick question on the term. How do we determine, is it 24 with a 12-month? Is that our standard, lease? So like Grand Sky, for example, is that something where it would be treated differently as it's?
Right. The lease that EDA approved was kind of a dual purpose. So if you're somebody like Thread that is a scale up, you would be limited to 24 months with one 12-month renewal possible. If you're more of that mentor space, then with the advisory board approval, you could stay longer, but it would be based on your continued contribution to the mission, not just that it's great space.
Thank you. Ms. Rich, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ms. Whitney.
Is there a ratio or a thought process on that number that would be more the mentor versus the ones that are more like Fred that want the private office space versus the membership hot desk seats, and how that plays into? And I don't, obviously it's just a question and it's all up for discussion, I'm sure, but as we enter that first phase, is there some kind of thought there as to what that looks like in this initial first year or 2 years?
we haven't really established anything like a goal on a percentage basis. We're seeing a lot more interest in people wanting a lockable space rather than just a hot desk. So, before we're even really open for business, we're kind of tweaking our expectations of what our business model will be. That Herald space, when the Herald asked to be released early, we got some letters of intent. Those were very much non-binding, but there is a lot of interest out there. And we'll be working with the folks at JLG on how to best, do we fit that space up as a white box? Do we ask some of these people who provided letters of intent to, contribute to that design process? We're still kind of figuring that out.
Thank you.
Ms. Richards, we talk a little bit about the committee that's going to essentially come up with all these rules and what they would like to see. I wonder if at this point we're putting the cart before the horse, and the fact that we'd allow them to lease up to 36 months, 3 years at that 50% discount, which adds up to roughly $62,000 over that 3 years, if my math is correct, which may not be, so you might want to double check me. I wonder if we wouldn't be better off just doing a 12-month while that committee gets everything ironed out and coming back to this board and discussing if we want to continue with that 50% discount. Well, I think it's great that we have them willing to mentor other companies. I'm not so sure it's the city of Grand Forks' job to pay for that mentorship for others. And so that's what I'm kind of struggling with right now. I see the positive getting somebody in there and getting revenue from that space. I'm just not sure that 3 years at that price is flexible, considering that there's a committee that's looking to come up with all the parameters.
Well, the terms that are laid out here have been kind of what was mutually agreeable. Obviously, Thread would have to be willing to have that shorter term. I think they would be, because initially it was proposed that it would be a 2-year lease, and they asked for the early opt-out. So I understand completely where you're coming from. I would have preferred to have all the plans and policies and procedures in place before we came to you, but they've been in the building, and as we've all talked about, we'd like to get the cash flow going. So we can certainly put that as an additional. The request is to approve the lease terms described herein, but if somebody would care to make a motion to have an initial term of 1 year subject to renewal at the advisory board's behest following approval of, selection criteria or policies, I think that would be certainly palatable to city staff, and I think it would be palatable to Thread as well.
Mr. Phelan, the mayor's obviously talked a little bit about plans for the building. Anything you want to weigh in on? Any initial thoughts that come up?
I think the nice part is they're, as Mr. Richard just said, they're in the building right now, so we want to retain them. And they are twofold. They provide a really great mentor as a startup company. And while we kind of figure things out here in this next year or so, I would say, as Ms. Richards said, if they're amenable to a year, they want to go year to year and we can come back here. But and at the same time, we're trying to figure out this more permanent space, which should be the Herald space, where tenants want to be there for. I think we want to be there 5 years, right, if not longer, paying the major bills so that we can continue to rotate startup companies through here in our downtown area. So we did have one initial advisory meeting, got lots of energy. There was lots of discussion about this building, as we talked about these tech accelerator loans, or should we go to an equity firm or a third party of some sort. So there's lots of moves. We probably need a meeting with that group to follow up on some of these more mundane procedures, but also with some of those investments that the strategic planning group is taking a look at too. So with that, lots going on all at once, and we're just trying to move forward. We appreciate you guys having an open mind while we figure things out and keep moving forward. I think they want some certainty, and I think 1 year gives them some certainty, and we want to give them certainty too, and want to start having them pay appropriately too.
Perfect. Any further comments, emotions?
No, I guess I feel like that the 2 years, is probably something that gives comfort to a startup or a new company. I think of our time at Center for Innovation and that, we had to eventually kind of get kicked out, And so I feel like, giving them the opportunity to not worry about where they're going to have to be if the city changes their policy in a year from now and then they can't afford the rent, but they're trying to upscale and bring more employees in. I guess my gut is to leave it at 2 years, certainly for someone of that size. And then if we wanted to meet and reevaluate, but if they're willing to take 1 year, then that's fine. But I'd hate to put that on them if we've already gone through all of this. And could we pivot to from a 2 year to a 1 year after this is signed? Is there anything saying that every lease has to be the same?
We can amend,
Yeah.
both parties are amenable,
Sure.
as Mr.
Yeah.
Stead has taught me.
Yeah.
Both sides just have to agree.
Yeah.
You almost say it once.
I guess I'm neutral to changing it. If everybody else wants to change to 1 year, that's fine. But I see value in giving a startup 2 years before they have to really worry about it.
Other comments? Is there a motion or maybe it's something that 2 years without the 12-month additional, until we come back and renegotiate. Like I said, I just think it's a lot to give 3 years at that 50% discounted rate, or even like at 18 months. Like, I'm good with moving around with it.
I was actually thinking
I
we
just-
had to compromise at
Yep.
18 months there, where we could revisit it at 18 months. Because 18 months could then just be extended to 36 if we felt
Sure.
at that time, right? I think that might be a reasonable compromise, because a year will go by pretty quick. Whereas 18 months, that extra 6 months would give the advisory board its ability to do some of their work. So I think I'd be comfortable with like an 18-month sort of situation.
Is that a motion?
Yeah. I make a motion to amend the agreement to 18 months with an 18-month extension available pending terms.
Is there a second? Second by Osowski. Further comments?
One
Mr.
comment, I just want to make sure that if going this route, I'm neutral as well. It's just that in the 18 months, I don't want to hold them hostage either on new terms. If we haven't figured out between the advisory and strategic planning and all of that, I just want to throw that out there that we should definitely just be cautious as we dance that. 'Cause it's going to take us a lot longer, and every month can be pretty pivotal in the first startup. So I just want to make sure that if we're coming up on that, I guess maybe simply stated, I'm going to default that in 18 months, if we don't have a decision that we'll do the extension at the current terms without raising them. Maybe what I'm saying, just to make sure, let's get our stuff in a row. I don't want to hamstring that.
I think the city of Grand Forks has always been known to be very business friendly. Same with this committee, and I think that's something that they could look at if that time comes.
And we could also keep that language in here where they could opt out after 12 months or
Yeah,
90
sure.
days.
Yeah,
notice. I mean, if you keep that language, that still gives them the
Yep.
out within that 18 months. So I mean, I would add that we could leave that language in, so they still have that out.
I'd modify my motion to say that we leave that language in.
Second by Osowski.
The motion to leave the 12-month opt-out option as is in the contract.
We have a motion and Mr. Gossett.
I think you just posing the question as whether the motion is.
Correct.
And it's an 18-month, they have the lease for 18 months with 12-month opt-out remaining in the lease, correct?
Correct. Thank you.
I'm assuming it was pending city attorney approval as well.
Like everything.
Both sides agree. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Computer turned off here, so item number 6 is Hive signatory authorization. Mr. Conlon.
It's kind of in the same vein as the last item, as Ms. Richards kind of indicated with the pertaining to the memberships and that sort of thing. And then just underlying theme of the building being rapid turnover, quick, changing tenants. Hopefully people are cycling in and out, getting the value they need, and then moving on. With that comes the need from the JDA's perspective, to be quite nimble and responsive to those requests as they come in. Yeah, monthly meeting is a little difficult to try and get people to convince them to wait, and as you know, memberships are tied to individuals rather than companies alone. We basically just anticipate a lot of turnover, agreements needing to be signed quickly, or terminated quickly, depending on the circumstance, that sort of thing. So in the interest of staff sanity and Brett's right now, for me having to track them down for signatures, I'd be looking for basically your approval to authorize city staff, the community development director, or designee, to basically execute hive agreements, membership agreements on behalf of the JDA. So you don't have to bring them to the growth on the JDA each month. I'm happy to stand for any questions on that.
Would that, Mr. Conlon, would that include like an end of the year report that you would brief us on? So we're all in the know.
We certainly could do that, yeah.
Perfect.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Crary, second by Kavami. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 7 is mobile recon past due loan update.
Yes, recall I was before this group back in April at our last meeting with the update with the mobile recon systems that they had not paid for at that time over a year. We've been working back and forth with Mr. Dowell, trying to provide kind of that regular update. That finish line had kind of been moving backwards on us over that time. The update this month is I don't have an update. Not been able to reach Mr. Dowell for the past 3.5 weeks or so. Sent several emails, a phone call, voicemail, not been able to contact him. Also, I've reached out to his private lender choice. I've been playing a bit of phone tag with them this week and haven't been able to touch base with them yet, but I did reach out to the development fund, who also has a loan with them. And basically, they've experienced the same, not been able to get in contact with them. I understand they've been a little bit busy post legislative session, so they've been tending to some other matters, I think. But they did anticipate circling back to that in the near future, and wish to hear kind of what this body's direction or thoughts were on next steps as well as choices. So hope to hear back from Choice in the near future with kind of their plans, relay those to the development fund and hear what they have to say. But with that, excuse me, really just looking for your direction as to what kind of you'd like the staff's next steps to be in terms of dealing with this.
Mr. Conlon, Mr. Wolf.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Conlon. So obviously this has been a process. We walked through it. I think we've done a reasonable job of reestablishing expectations as this journey has gone through. Now with lack of communication, I guess I think we should work with Mr. Gosted soon to determine what our potential recourse through the promissory note or personal guarantees, understand our options, and I would recommend we look to proceed through those options as it's not responsive. Also keeping in mind is what the other parties might be doing. Mr. Gossett, I would lean on him through that process. Those are my thoughts.
Can we send it to collections and just be done with it?
I certainly meet with Mr. Gossett and walk through what those options are. I don't pretend to know the ins and outs of the law on that side of things. So unless I suppose we may need to look at things a bit more closely.
You came here asking for our recommendation, and now we're just waiting for Mr. Gossett to tell us what our choices are, what our options are.
I think some of it comes down to as well, if there's property that we can get assets from to repay what they need or repay their past due and everything else. So there might be options as far as recouping some of that cash through property and whatnot versus just sending it to collection.
Okay.
Is that correct, Mr. Gossett?
What we look at is first take a look at the revenues in the note, our security guarantee. There may be some procedures you might have to send them a formal notice. I don't have the documents right in front of me, but what I wrote down is just pursue whatever remedies that JDA has to try to have the security agreement and guarantee documents and pursue those vigorously at this point because you haven't had any contact. There hasn't been payment for quite some time. Probably at a default scenario. So,
Thank you, Mr. Costa.
So I think just a question too, I mean, in the staff report, it says that the staff is recommending setting June 1, 2023 as the deadline for them to become current on its past due, which is now 4 days ago. So wondering if there's a way to amend that in regards to allowing Mr. Gosta to do his work. And, you know, I don't know if that matters or not in the staff report, but that is just a point of clarification in the staff report.
So, yeah, so that piece, probably could have called that out a little clearer, but that was in the section sort of the staff report presented at the last meeting, basically saying this is what was recommended at the last meeting. We had recommended at that time to set the June 1st deadline based on Mr. Dowell's third iteration of, his update his path forward. At that time, I think this group, rather than set that firm deadline, we were looking for kind of see how things shook out, if there was any movement from his creditors or for paying the loan or that sort of thing. So it seemed like we were moving away from the setting the deadline piece. Just wanted to leave that in there for context. But yeah, if the general direction from the group is to sit down with Mr. Costa and figure out what next steps look like in terms of collection. Also, like I said, I'll circle back with Choice and development funding, get on the same page. And if there's any, anything of note that needs to be brought back forward, we can certainly do that. And obviously bring it to Dan's attention too as we work through that process.
I mean, no action, no contact, those are pretty clear indications that it's time to do what we need to do. And
Mr. Costa?
yeah, and you gotta be mindful too, is that when you commence something like this, you start the process, you're going down the path of default. Always have the ability, if the debtor has put together some plan, we can always come back to the JDA and say, gee, he's put together a plan to cure, and we can reconstitute things. But at this juncture, what I'm hearing is June 1 was kind of the date to hear something from them. We're not hearing anything from them, and we're well past due as far as the amounts due, knowing it's probably time to start acting to get some action from the debtor.
Mr. Conlon, are you looking for a motion? It wouldn't hurt.
Good question.
I think we'll make a formal, is there a formal motion?
What do you recommend?
I'll make a motion that we proceed with having Mr. Gottstead look at what we need to do in order to begin default proceedings for this past due amount and future for the collection of the necessary funds.
Perfect. We have a motion by Whitney and a second by Mr. Wolf. Seeing no more comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item number 8 is past due loan update, Amy's Place, French Taste, Course Detailing. Mr. Conlon.
This kind of been a standing item on our agenda, more for your information than anything. Just want to give you a status update on our current past due loans. Amy's Place has been on here for a while. We have been able to reach out to her. She has gotten some more clarification from her, I guess, landlord, for lack of a better word, out at the base, is wanting to continue and give it a go in terms of restructuring something so that she's able to continue operating and repay part of the loan. Was able to make contact with Nicole at the Small Business Development Center. She confirmed that she has met with Amy and they were in their kind of due diligence piece. I guess Amy, as I understand, was pulling together some more information, some numbers and stuff. Nicole informed me she didn't anticipate her being ready at all for this meeting, but hoped later in June that they would have something in the way of a proposal for you to consider. So good news on that front. Cole's Detailing, also a startup loan, several months past due, was having trouble getting a hold of them, was able to get a hold of them earlier this month and relay the same thing as kind of our new policy of sorts for the Growth Fund is please reach out to Small Business Development Center, figure out, get on the same page and come forward with a restructure to see if one is tenable. Not been able to confirm that he's reached out to Small Business Development Center yet. That was a little bit more recent. So plan on giving him a call in the near future to make sure that loop is closed. I hope to have more for you on that one in the near future. French Taste is both a startup and C-run loan with us in default on both, or in arrears rather on both of them. We had some initial conversations with the business owner probably over a month ago now, trying to work through what kind of security was in place, what his plans were. There was some discussion at the time of pursuing bankruptcy. Then he was, I think, going a different direction and just seeing what was available in the collateral he had to see if there was enough there to cover things. Since then, we've not been able to contact him either. As I understand it, he's no longer in the country currently. Not sure if there's intention of coming back or that sort of thing, but in any case, we've been unsuccessful in contacting him in the recent past. Just trying to get, any additional info on that front. So we can keep trying on that front. I can also speak with Mr. Gossett on that front and see what options look like there. And that's tonight, just information for you is in terms of where those ones lie. But I said I have to stand for any questions on those, but just information tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Conlon. Questions, comments, concerns? Mr. Guami?
I guess with French Taste, if there's the opportunity to, claim assets or things before they're sold off or disappear or whatever, I guess if the, the lenders or, if he's out of the country, I feel like we need to move forward. And if, I feel like that's one where maybe other folks are working through it, but if this person is left, I think we should start down that process immediately, in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Guami. Any further discussion?
Do we need to do
we
any, do
need a
we need to
motion for
make a
that?
motion on, I guess would be
You'd
my
like one?
question.
Yeah, I would move to start default proceedings per the agreements.
A second.
Perfect. We have a motion by Guami, second by Osowski. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. I believe that was our
I motion adjourned.
last action item. We have a motion to adjourn by Osowski, a second by Whitner. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Oh.